All right, meeting will come to order. Ms. Score, we call the roll.
Mr. Lamar,
Present.
Ms. Conlon,
Present.
Mr. Benjamin,
Present.
Ms. Williams,
Present.
Dr. Vidoff.
Present.
Thank you, Ms. Gore. If you'll all rise, we will say the Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Conley, will you lead us, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You remain standing for just a moment of silence. All right, you may be seated. Ms. Gore, do we have any citizens' comments? Okay, no citizens' comments. We will move to the approval of the agenda. So do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Have a motion
Second.
and a second. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I move to amend the agenda by removing item 9F, approval of the superintendent brochure.
Okay, we have a motion to amend the agenda to remove item 9F, approval of the superintendent search brochure. Do I have a second for this?
Second.
You have a second? Any discussion?
The only reason that I'm bringing this up is we already have it scheduled for the special called meeting, so I just thought it would be best if we just go ahead and do it at the special called meeting.
Okay. Anything else along those lines? All right, so all in favor of removing item 9F from our agenda tonight, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. The ayes have it, the motion passes. So we will need to, do we need to approve a second agenda with that out of it? What we need to do, is that just, we're good now? Okay, all right, cool, we'll keep going. We'll move to reports. First is Chairman's report. It was good to be in the Day on the Hill. I know many of us got a chance to go to that, and so that was really a cool thing to be a part of. I've never gotten to do that before. My schedule didn't allow it, so thanks to you guys for being there and for being a part of that. I thought that was it was a good time for us to be there.
That is good.
Yeah, I thought it
I
was
learned
really
a
good.
lot.
Yeah, I did too. I look forward to making sure we get a chance to do that again. It's good to get a chance to meet with our legislators locally. I'm glad we do that because they're not so rushed whenever we do those things. But it was certainly good to be there. That's really all I had just to comment on. So we move ahead to superintendent's report.
I just have a couple items tonight. I want to remind the board that our final Lead Arlington meeting of the year is March 10th. That'll be from 9 to 11 at Town Hall. As always, we would welcome the board members to attend that. So if you do not have that on your calendars, if you would please put that on your calendars, if you can squeeze that in. Also want to let the board know that the English and Language Arts and CT Local Textbook Adoption Preview Day is February the 26th, which is tomorrow. And from 8 to 4:30 here at district office. All community stakeholders and board members are invited to stop by and provide feedback on the proposed ELA and CT textbooks up for adoption this year. I just do want to add something you all have seen by now. There's a big piece of the department's only putting forth one piece of legislation this year, and that is revamping early literacy. And so this is a piece of that. And so Todd and his team is on that, and how, because what we adopt is going to have to marry with what the state's going to provide, depending upon how that legislation is passed. So I just wanted you all to know that that's going to be that we're going to have to marry that with whatever they come up with. I will share that today I did listen in on the first hearing for, I think it's, what is that? It's House Bill, is it 2669 or something? I can't remember. But I listened to the first one on that today. There's going to be several amendments, and there will be the second hearing on that next week. But it's could completely change early literacy and the focus from the state. So we'll stay on top of that. And with that, that concludes my report.
Okay, thanks, Superintendent. We'll move ahead to financial report. Ms. Roberts.
Financial report as of December 2019, general fund revenues of $20.1 million, expenditures of $19.8 million, nutrition fund revenues $576,710, expenditures $523,703. federal and discretionary grants funds, revenues and expenditures of $1,035,387. CIP fund, revenues $1,491,133, expenditures $421,106, and those are for the middle school gym and STEM project. The Interlocal Health Benefits Plan Asset Trust Report, December 2019, year-to-date revenues $31.4 million, year-to-date expenses $20.1 million, beginning balance $78,000, ending balance $11.3 million. That concludes the financial reports.
Thank you, Ms. Roberts. We'll move to TLN report. Dr. Diaz.
So, as the chairman already said, most of the board was at the TSBA. It's the Legislative and Legal Institute now, I guess, but it's stay on the head. That's all we've always called it. But it was informative. A little bit slow starting, but the most valuable thing was all of the bills that they went through, and all of us have had the chance to sit there and listen to that. So really, without rehashing that, that's kind of where we are. It was a really good update for us, and we'll keep an eye on several of the things that we talked about that weekend.
Thanks, sir. We'll move ahead to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I request removing from the consent agenda item 7D, policy 5.801, superintendent recruitment and selection. As
Okay.
I talked to you about.
We have a motion to remove 7D, policy 5.801, superintendent recruitment and selection. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any discussion? All in favor of removing 7D from the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. The ayes have it. Motion passes. So, and the amended consent agenda, do I have a motion to approve the amended consent agenda?
Motion.
Have a motion? And a second? Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion passes. We'll move ahead to miscellaneous budget items. Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 8A is Resolution 2020-04. This is the monthly Board of Education amending the 1920 school budget. If you see, if you look at that, this is our normal monthly transfers from within the same category. It is not required to go before the town. You'll see that the resolution speaks for itself and what those expenses are. I'll be glad to answer any questions. Other than that, it is my recommendation to pass Resolution 2020-04.
So moved.
Okay, you've heard the superintendent's recommendation. Do you have a motion?
So
Or a
moved.
motion?
Second.
And a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. The ayes have it, the motion passes. We'll move ahead to business recommended items. Superintendent.
Our next item on 9A is Resolution 2020-05. This is amending our 1920 school fee schedule. You will see this month we have 4 field trips, and you'll see those itemized. Each one of those are at the high school. And with that, it is my recommendation to amend the school fee schedule, Resolution 2020-05.
Okay,
So moved.
we have a motion
Second.
Second.
and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. The ayes have it, the motion passes.
Our next item, 9B, is you have before you the proposed 21-22 calendar for the school year. I will inform the board that we did send out a survey for all of our stakeholders and gave them 3 different options. The option before you, which mirrors the calendar that we're doing this year, and that's been approved for next school year. The second option for employees was to continue with the 175 instructional days, but instead of making those other days flex for professional development, they were embedded in the calendar, which were days that everybody would attend at the same time. Or the third choice was to go back to the calendar we did, I guess it was now 3 years ago, the 180-day instructional days without the additional professional development. I will say this calendar, which is the calendar that we're, similar to what we're doing now, 86% of our stakeholders selected, so it was highly recommended. 5% for selection B and 9% for the for the third option. So with that, it is my recommendation to pass the 2021-2022 instructional calendar.
Okay, you've heard the motion from the superintendent. Do you have a motion to approve? Have a motion and a second?
Second.
You have a second, any discussion? All right, all in favor of this motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. The ayes have it, the motion passes.
Our next item is recommendation to grant the superintendent the authority to execute contract with ENA in the amount of $140,000. We do have our friends here, but I'm going to turn this over to Russell so he can explain to you. This is something that we do every year. This is for our internet services and to introduce our guest with us.
So this is just for one thing, but it's very essential to many things that we do. It's for internet service for all of our locations. And we have Stephen and Mark from ENA in the audience if you have any questions about this for myself or for either of them.
Is this the contract we've had all along with the same company?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
And I will tell you, they're fabulous. They've worked all weekend. We've had difficulty at the high school in Donaldson with some fiber. Then they went ahead proactively, Russell working with them and made sure that we didn't have the same issues with the middle school and AES. But they worked all weekend to cause as least disruption as possible. So they're fabulous. They've been with us the 6 years that we've been in session. So couldn't recommend them any higher.
Okay, so you made the motion.
Yep, recommendation to grant ENA the authority for myself to execute the contract for ENA for $140,000.
Okay, you've heard the superintendent's recommendation. Do you have a motion?
Motion to
moved.
approve.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no.
When does that contract start? When, July?
For next school year, yep,
Thank you.
yep.
The ayes have it, and the motion passes.
Our next item, as you know, on our five-year capital plan for this, coming up for next year, we have, actually it's for in this calendar year, that'll be done within this fiscal year. We have for both the middle school and for Donaldson to receive painting. We got a great deal on this. This is coming in below what we have budgeted. So with that, it is my recommendation to award the bid for painting services for Arlington Middle School and Donaldson Elementary School to Matthews Contract Painting in the amount of $114,400 and grant the superintendent the authority to negotiate the terms of the related contract. I have Mr. Ruff here. He can answer any questions. We've used this particular company before and was very pleased with them. So be happy to take any questions. Otherwise, that is my recommendation.
Will the painting be done in the summertime when there's
Yes.
nobody in the building?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
As soon as school's out through, hopefully done by June 30th, hopefully.
Okay, heard the superintendent's recommendation. Do I have a motion to approve? We have a motion
Second.
and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. The ayes have it, the motion passes.
The next item, 9E, these are our annual courses, special courses that have to be approved by the state. What these courses are, these are not new courses to the high school. These are courses that have been there for several years, ever since I've been associated with Arlington High School. They are not part of the course catalog for the state, so districts have to fill out a special course application. You may remember that from the previous years. So this is just doing that again for two courses. One is the Honors Humanities course, and one is for Facing History and Ourselves. So with that is my recommendation to approve the renewal application for these two courses for next school year.
Okay, for the superintendent's recommendation, I do have a motion to approve. I have a motion
Second.
and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion passes. Anything else from the
Then-
board? Oh, yep, sorry.
So the next item, which was pulled off, I don't know who wants to take this, but it's policy superintendent recruitment and selection. So I will turn that over.
I move policy 5.801, superintendent recruitment and selection.
So what's your motion?
I move policy 5.801 superintendent recruitment and selection.
That we utilize, I just want to make sure I understand what your motion's for, that we utilize this as our recruitment and selection.
I don't know, I have, gotten my,
Well, we have to have a motion on the floor to start discussion.
Right, I just want to make sure
well, that's what I thought I was doing, is making a motion.
that we utilize this as our criteria. You just said you moved that
Yes.
policy, so I just want to make sure that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
Okay, so motion to utilize 5.804 as our recruitment policy, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, for the motion, is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second, any discussion?
Yes, I wanted to make an amendment to the policy. I move to amend policy 5.801 superintendent recruitment and selection by adding the following language as line 10, as I believe on there. Board members may exercise their authority to interview qualified candidates who may not be a finalist recommended by the consultant.
Will you say that again for us?
And I have a copy for you.
Okay. Excellent.
Jana, I got you one too.
Adding the following as line 10 on the policy. Board members may exercise their authority to interview qualified candidates who may not be a finalist recommended by the consultant.
Right after.
Okay, so to add line 10 to the policy, we have a motion on the floor to add line 10 to the policy that would state, board members may exercise their authority to interview qualified candidates who may not be a finalist recommended by the consultant. So that's a motion on the floor to add that to this policy. Do I have a second?
Yeah, you got a second down there. Oh, did you second it, Ms. Williams?
No, she made the motion
I
to
made
add
the
this.
Oh,
amendment.
I
to
second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Only one question. How would that work?
Well, my only concern was when I was reading this, and this is superintendent recruitment and selection, my concern was that we were only limited to 3 candidates, and if we saw that there was another qualified candidate that we might want to interview, that we could place that person on the list and they're already recommended by the consultant. So I think it's kind of self-explanatory.
So we would vote on whether the group wanted as a whole to interview, or could I as an individual just say, hey, we should interview this guy? I guess that's what I'm getting at. Like, how would we add them,
Well, I
add
said
them to the list?
my intent was board members, so that would be 5 members.
Okay.
So it would be all of it, I just want to clarify that
Yeah,
as
that's what I
well.
was just trying to figure out how it would work.
So that would be that all of us would interview, we would come with like a 4th or a 5th or even a 6th person and say, hey, all of us will interview this particular person, and that just comes from a board member recommendation, is that correct?
Well, as I said, I think it's pretty clear, board members may, and I didn't say shall. I was just giving us another avenue to maybe interview a qualified person for the superintendent, because, you know, if we're going to limit to 3, and there's a really qualified candidate out there, and that we're not able to interview because we've already got our 3, I just wanted to make sure we had the leeway to add another finalist to that list for us to interview.
Well, I guess it doesn't really answer the question. Like, how? Okay, so if I guess, let me give you a scenario. So if there was 8 applicants, and we said the first 3, and we wanted, say, applicant 7 or 8, and then Mr. Benjamin wanted applicant 9 or 10, are we just throwing them in there, or I don't understand procedurally, I guess, how that would work.
Well, certainly you can amend this any way you want to look at it. My point was, I just didn't want it limited to 3. That was my concern.
I mean, we can interview as many, I think, like I was said last time, too, we're
Because
only
now-
at 28, so we can interview as many as we want, but I'm just saying, like, I don't know how that works as far as being in the policy.
Well, in the policy, it states that, that the consultant shall vet candidates for the position of superintendent. The consultant shall recommend to the board these 3 candidates meeting the minimum qualifications established by the board. And I wasn't clear on what, if applications are requested, they shall be sent to the consultant. I wasn't clear on what that was, Ms. Beekman. I would have to get your clarification on that, I think.
Yes, ma'am. At the point, of course, that the policy that you guys voted on the intention to use TSBA, we had no kind of instruction from TSBA as to how they were going to find applicants. And so wanted to make sure that it allowed TSBA the option of soliciting applications or not taking applications and just talk to people. We didn't know how TSBA planned to go about dealing with applicants, but the law is clear that that the board must have a policy that specifically addresses, if you take applications, how they are to be vetted.
Right.
And so I was trying to cover the base that is prescribed in statute so that the board could instruct who they wanted to get those applications. In other words, for example, as opposed to one method that was in the previous policy, or the policy as it's written now, is that the chairman would accept applications. Right. And in that the board opted to hire TSBA, it right. seemed more consistent that they would get the applications, not the chairman.
Exactly. So
But-
that's the way I understood it,
Yeah.
yes.
But we wouldn't be limited to just 3. If
Well,
there was somebody else, I mean, would we see all the names that they are looking at?
Here's, this is completely a board decision, so I don't have a recommendation one way or the other. There was a limitation in there before, the way that the policy is written right now, is that you would interview the three finalists. And so, but it is completely within your discretion. So one way of for example, clarifying what Dr. Viox wanted and also dealing with what Ms. Williams wanted, you could completely take out reference to 3 altogether and just say that you would interview every qualified candidate TSBA sent you. But again, I'm not going to weigh in on your business.
I don't want to do that.
That's what y'all, whatever you.
Yeah, that's not what I want to do at all.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So in this, you just, if there's 3 that we go, hey, there's somebody else that we'd like. That
Yeah,
I'd
there's
like to-
someone that, that's come, that is not on that list. I was just hoping that we could add them to the list but we can amend this any way that y'all think would work better.
Yeah, I
This
just want to
is
make sure I
just
get the intention.
Well, and
to figure
I
out
don't
around that.
see
That's
any-
what my concern is, that there's somebody out there, they're not on the list, so we're gonna just interview those 3 people.
And so are you saying, would we have the discretion to add someone to the list if we didn't see them on the finalist list? Is that really kind of what the
Right.
intention? Okay,
Yes.
okay.
That's what I'm
I
saying.
think that would be good.
So I think that language that Ms. Williams proposed deals with the discretion that you would have to add somebody, but I think what it's missing is
Tell me.
what Dr. Viox is asking is, how do they get? How do you decide who else
gets on
to
the
interview?
list?
So in other words, for example, if you said, if a majority of the board decided to interview somebody else, or as Dr. Viox said, or is it if just one board member, that's the only thing that is unaddressed, I think.
Or we could just increase the number. If 3 is too small, we could say 4 or 5 or whatever. I think either way, it's fine with me. I just was curious procedurally how it would work.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm not opposed to this at all.
Yeah, not me
I'm
either.
interested as well
Just
to go,
clarification.
how do we have to come as a consensus as a board to go, okay, we're going to add the 4th person?
Okay,
or
and here's what, before, I know when we went through this process, we did see all the
We actually
Informa-
didn't see them all.
We sold 4.
Well, we actually had, I think, 9 applicants, and they brought us 4 that they said met all the qualifications.
Correct.
But we actually didn't see who the other applicants were. We sort of heard through the grapevine who some of those people were, but they didn't even bring them to us because they didn't meet the qualifications that we had set out.
Well, what would be your amendment or to this amendment?
So if it's the number
Let me
three,
hear it.
if it's the number 3, like if we feel like 3 is too little, I don't think 4 or 5 is too many. I think outside of that, it gets a little bit. Like I was saying, Tullahoma had 28 applicants, and they only interviewed 4. And I suspect this job is going to be pretty desirable. I feel like we may get quite a few applicants.
I would think
So,
as well.
Yeah, and my concern, like, if Scott had someone he thought would be a great superintendent and they didn't make the list, would that be an option? I mean,
How do we get them on the list?
yeah, I mean, that's all. I don't care. I mean, we can interview 10 if that's but it would be over several days. Like, I don't care. So if it's the number, we
I think
can.
10 is too many.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. But is there a number that maybe some of the other board members have in their mind? Like, it's not, if 3 is too low, like, where do we go from there? It's either 4 or 5. I think
What do you
really
guys
beyond
think?
5 or 6, I think is
I
a
said
bit
I wouldn't
much.
do any more than 5.
Okay.
What do you say, you?
What do you think about that, Hugh?
Would you?
Not more than 6. Not more than 6.
I mean,
like
I don't
5.
care.
5 is good.
I'm kind of with Ms. Williams on 5,
I like
honestly.
5.
I would tend to agree too.
So I guess if we're sort of in agreement, I'll make the motion that we amend
But be
Ms.
sure to leave
Williams'
some of that.
Ms. Williams' original thing, or we can just actually amend.
Could change this,
Yeah,
change our
line
policy.
7 to 5 candidates, and if that accomplishes
But
what she was.
does that make sure that someone that
Yeah,
you
so.
would want on the list, or
Yeah,
Scott
so-
would want on this, or Mr. Lamar would want on the list?
So that would cap it at 5. I don't know that it completely accomplishes that.
I don't think if we change the superintendent requirement and selection to 5, I don't think it accomplishes what you're trying to accomplish with this.
If I may, I think what Ms. Beekman said when she said by majority of the vote, by majority of the board, a board member may make a recommendation to
Yeah, and then
review
we vote on it.
candidates outside of that 3 with the approval of the majority of the board. I think that's what you're trying to get to.
And that's exactly what I meant by board members may, the majority.
Okay,
And I should have stated that.
that's okay. That's easy to fix.
Okay.
I can fix that.
So, question, just legally. So, because we're on a bit of a time schedule for all this stuff, and I know that's why
Right.
everybody's trying to get it all done. Could that be something that's accomplished through you or through board secretary? Is that going to have to come to a meeting and a vote and all that stuff? So, for instance, is there a way to write that in there procedurally that if Ms. Williams wants to add a candidate and 3 of the other ones agree through you, boom, throw them on?
Well, a suggestion I would have is, because, obviously I don't need to be at any part of this and don't want to be. But maybe you duplicate the same language that you have in some of your other policies. For example, one that comes to mind is the way that you call a special called meeting, is that if a majority of the board, as it relates to a survey that's done by the board secretary, you can adduce the number, the majority number that way to add the person. So I just happen to have that language. Let me
Okay.
just read it to you how that works in the special called meeting and see if this works.
Yeah, no, I
It
agree.
says, to call a special called meeting by a majority of the board, as opposed to this chairman just setting it, a board member shall make the request one of the following ways: by motion during a regular meeting or in writing to the board chairman, so that would be the way it would be done. And then the request must specifically state blah, blah, blah. The results of, and then there shall be, the chairman shall immediately forward the request to the superintendent or designee, which generally it's the board secretary, to poll the board members. The results of the poll shall be provided to each board member. If a majority of the board members agree to the, in this case, special call meeting, but this one would be to add another applicant, the superintendent or designee shall poll the board members for the date, time, and location. But anyway, it would just say to notify the board that a majority of the board members wish to add another candidate.
I actually like that.
Yeah, and that works for us, that covers us.
Yep.
Yeah.
Ms. Williams, what do you think about that language?
So doing a poll to add,
Yeah.
to find out whether you have a majority using your amendment. Or anything else. I mean, I was just thinking off the top of my
No,
head.
no,
of a way.
Yeah, just to
I'm
keep it
thinking-
timely.
Yeah, right,
I'm
right.
thinking, I'm sorry.
Yep.
I'm trying to get Miss Mason to her game too. So we need more than just by majority
No.
to make it.
No,
Board
it
members
would-
by majority may exercise their authority to interview qualified candidates who may not be a finalist recommended by the consultant.
That's clear. The question is, that I was responding to was Dr. Viox's question as to how you would find out if you have a majority. And so I was just suggesting that a poll might be a way of doing that without having to reconvene the whole board to find out whether you have the majority.
That seems,
Which I think in line of
Timely.
our
So how would you
timeliness,
know you
in
had
time of our
a majority?
timeliness, that makes a
Yeah,
lot of
good
sense.
point, yeah.
What do y'all think about that?
Unless you either had a meeting or
Okay.
you took a poll, but.
Okay,
Good,
if we can do the poll,
I think that's
I think
excellent.
that would be fine.
Sure.
It's fine for me now, the rest of you, I don't know. you know.
I would agree with
I
that.
would
Let's-
agree.
yeah.
Yeah, that'd be good.
So we can make that motion and then.
So we would
we'll-
go through Jana, right?
Yes.
If we need to add another person, we would poll the board. We would send the request to me.
Yes.
And I would send it out to the board, and then
And the
we would
responses would go to the
respond to
To
Jana.
Jana.
Well, it's
Right.
just what we did about the special call meeting.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. So you good with that, Ms. Williams?
I'm good, yeah.
Okay. All right.
I'm
Y'all
good.
like that? Okay.
Yes.
So, we can either,
I wouldn't do it together. Yeah.
we can amend Board Policy 5.801 to read that way, or we can, but we have a motion on the floor right now to add this as our language. So we can either remove this motion that we have
And
and
then
add
we'll do
it, and
the
add the different
different
motion. Ms.
language.
Williams, this is
Yes.
your motion, so.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
I will remove my amendment and we will
Substitute.
substitute, yes, for the
Okay, so we have.
special call meeting procedure.
Okay, I like that.
Because I don't know what all this
Not
is.
sure what the numbers are either. So, Ms. Williams has removed her motion. I think we have to remove the second too.
Right here. I'll
Okay,
remove
Mr.
the
Lamar
second as
removed
well.
his second.
Okay.
And so we'll need a new motion to add the language to the superintendent recruitment selection per the language that we discussed here, and
Yes, sir.
I don't have any specifics around that. So what's that?
So
what's
would it
that?
say,
But the question I had though is, are you still doing the 5? And, I mean, because Ms. Williams' motion didn't have anything to do with that.
Right.
So you want to deal with that motion first, maybe, and
Yeah.
then vote on the 5 business, maybe?
Around the motion around adding this language
Yes.
to this? Okay.
So it would say, something like, all board members may exercise their authority to interview candidates who may not be a finalist recommended by the consultant, by majority vote.
or majority poll, can we say poll? or-
Let's say poll, yeah, majority poll, and then we'll use the language that's in the existing policy about special called meetings to say how the poll works. In other words, it goes to you and then to her and then.
Perfect.
Now, let me be clear.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so we're not definitely saying that it's going to be 5. We can go up to 5, is what we're saying.
I think you're better off dealing with your part of the motion first and then take up
How many?
how
we
many.
wanted.
Yeah.
This is
So
actually
that
giving
it-
us the authority to go past what was in the
Yes,
policy.
and I've given that
And then we'll
permission,
come to the,
right.
then we'll come to the number that we want to choose after that.
You've given the permission to add the part about the polling, but then in terms of this issue about line 7,
We'll just do a separate motion.
amending that, I think you'd
We'll
be
do a
better
separate
off with a separate motion
Okay.
because it's gonna
Okay.
get really confusing.
Okay.
Yes, it will.
Okay.
So are we good on the language then on this?
Yes.
All right, then,
Okay.
so
Clear.
are you,
Yeah, I've already
Make a-
told Ms. Smith.
Make a
Ms.
motion?
Speakman I have.
All right, so we just need to make a
So
motion
I'll-
to, okay.
so she made it, I guess, right, legally, so
Uh-huh.
I'll second.
Yep,
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to adopt this new language that we've been discussing here, because I can't repeat it all.
yeah.
But does everybody understand clear what we're trying to do here? Okay, and so we have a motion and a second, any more discussion around this? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Okay, the ayes have it, and this motion passes.
Yes.
And now we need to address the number of people that we want, the possibility of adding a specific number of people over our number 3 that's already stated in Board Policy 5.801. Or we can leave it at 3, or we can,
So should we say, I'll make a motion that we change the language, the consultant shall recommend up to 5.
okay?
Well,
All right, hang on, we have a motion.
Yeah.
So to have a second, that we amend the language in 5.801 to, rather than take out 3 and move it to up to 5. We have a motion to have a second.
Second.
Have a second, any discussion?
Repeat the discussion one more time.
So in policy 5.801, Mr. Viox has recommended that the line that says the consultant shall recommend to the board 3 candidates meeting the minimum qualifications, amending that to say up to 5.
Okay.
but is that language limiting us to only what the consultants do? Or if we
No,
find
because-
somebody outside of?
No, because you already passed that.
We already passed that part. That's what we did when we're
That's the
gonna do the
previous.
call, to poll everyone for the
Take a
majority.
poll.
So we could, here's what we could do, we could leave this at 3 that come from the consultants, because we have the authority to add people to it in the motion that we just passed.
It's true.
That's true.
Yep. And
Yes.
however many.
And that's what I really wanted,
That's
bottom line, it's
Okay.
what I was going for, so why don't we do that?
So I'll withdraw.
We don't have to change.
I'll withdraw that. Yeah,
Okay.
Withdraw.
Okay, so this motion is withdrawn?
Yeah.
And the second, Ms. Williams?
Second.
Yes,
Okay,
second.
the second is withdrawn as well.
Perfect.
So we will leave policy 5.801 as written, and we have a new policy that we just voted on.
With the new as written.
With the new as, yeah, with the new
Yes,
as
right.
stated.
Yes,
That
yes.
you'll write for us and send out to us.
Of course, of
Okay,
course.
good. We good on that? Good work, team, good work.
It was good work, I like it.
All right, so we've now dealt with this, so motion to adjourn.
One announcement.
Okay.
In this room on Saturday morning, the 4th of April, between 11 and 1, we're having our annual Veterans Lunch. Last year, we had it at the Senior Citizen Center, put on by the Senior Citizen Center. We had 50 veterans there, and Russ Newbell was the speaker. So Russ made a comment to me during the Christmas parade, which I thought was quite unique. He said, "There you are, old guys, marching in the head of the parade with a deuce and a half in the middle, and there we are marching." And I got thinking about that. So this year, we're going to have the Veterans Lunch here at 11 o'clock. Kroger's going to furnish the food. We're going to have about 80 people, and I got a super speaker that can't be no better than Mark Norris.
Wow.
So it'll last about 11 to 1. I think Jana sent out the staff and the school board members. We're going to have 35 ROTC guys and about 40 veterans. And let me say this, there will be no head table. Everybody will be equal. I want to have a veteran or 2 at a table and these young kids at a table, and I want them to interact. And we'll have a school board person there, so it'll be a good time. Saturday morning at 11 o'clock, so hope y'all can
The
do
date again, Mr. Lamar, the April the what?
April the 4th, that's a Saturday, 11 to 1, Mark Norris is speaker.
Yeah. Awesome. And I
Thank you
think
very
she
much.
did send that out, 'cause
Very
that
cool.
was
She
big.
did.
Yeah.
Good. I'm going to squeeze them in here. All right, any other announcements? All right, do you have a motion to adjourn?
I move.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
And second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no? We are adjourned.